Well, to discuss the scourge of gender-based violence and what needs to be done, we are joined by Elaine Pypers, the Communications Officer and Ambassador at SA Women Fight Back, GBV activist Boitumelo, as well as Lesley, Ncube, the spokesperson at the Total Shutdown Intersectional Women's Movement. Ladies, thank you so much for your time and welcome to ENCA. I mean, I want to start here with you, Boitumelo. You are a gender-based violence activist. I mean, quite frankly, there's been a lot of concern about there's so much talk shop being done, there's so much conversation being done. Is it reaching the right ears? Are we seeing progress from lamenting about the scourge of gender-based violence? Boitumelo, can you hear me? Boitumelo Thage, can you hear me? All right, let me try Lesley. Lesley, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
I want to just pose the same question to you while we wait, of course, for Boitumelo's, audio there to be fixed up. The scourge around gender-based violence. We know that with activism comes a lot of dialogue, comes a lot of awareness being raised. But the question is, I'm sure activists are at a point where, even South Africa is at a point where we are tired of talking and just hosting dialogues. Is it reaching the ears that it needs to? Are authorities, including government, hearing these pleas and actually doing something about it?
I mean, as you've already highlighted, that we're tired of talking as feminist activists and gender activists in this space. We've been having these conversations since the beginning. When we were planning the march in 2018, we're still having the same conversations on how we can implement change. It seems like the government is listening. They did take on the 24 demands to try and implement in the country. But however, the implementation of these demands are seemingly slow. There is no urgency on the government to implement these demands. And it's 2 years now, and the deadline for most of the demands that we present to the government, the deadline has lapsed. We are talking about a scourge that is happening across the country. Women are dying at an alarming rate, and we're tired of having conversations. What other actions do we need to take as women in this country to be taken seriously?
Yeah, and Elaine, I'm sure you can agree with me here. As a woman, I don't feel safe. I don't know if South Africa is the country where I need to reside safely, where my daughter can walk out the house safely because of the numbers, because of the stats, because of the reality that we're seeing where women are being killed, women aren't protected enough. So with your work, even with, the SA Women Fight Back movement, what stories are you hearing about women on the ground in terms of how they are protecting themselves and also about what they're going through every day?
Thank you. As a woman myself, a young woman living in South Africa, it is quite scary. I recently wrote an article on calling out our perpetrators of gender-based violence. I think that it is really scary for myself to even go out and take a jog. I can't do that alone. I can't walk to spa that 500 meters from my home for fear of being followed or kidnapped. And these are similar stories that I am hearing from women all around me, colleagues, friends, acquaintances. Even recently, before the lockdown, I was at the Gautrain station waiting for my train. And I saw a man being aggressive towards another woman, aggressively asking her for a number. And after she said no multiple times, he still continued until eventually he walked away. And then my colleague and I walked up to her and asked her if she's okay. Such small nuances of GBV persist daily in South Africa.
Yeah.
That we as women have to face.
We absolutely have to face them, and we don't have to necessarily face them because we have every right to walk freely and comfortably and safely, but unfortunately, that is the reality of the young woman. Boitumelo, I just want to test with you. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
All right. Let me bring you in here, Boitumelo, and welcome. I mean, you are a GBV activist. What are men not getting about gender-based violence. There seems to also be that conversation on social media that where you find even other men and even some women saying not all men are trash, especially when the message is trying to, create awareness around the reality of women. But what do you think in your activism men are not understanding about women saying, do not touch me when I say no, do not have sex with me if I do not consent, you are violating my space when I say no and you persist. What do you think they're not understanding?
I think men need to understand that it's not that we are asking them to stop gender-based violence because they feel entitled to our bodies. So we really need them to understand that they shouldn't feel entitled to our bodies because that is incorrect and it's objectifying women.
Yeah.
So yes.
And that brings me then to the question about the challenges that perhaps all three of you face in your activism and the awareness that you're trying to raise. And Lesley, let me start with you, because I see a lot of women who speak out against gender-based violence also getting attacked, getting questioned. But, what were you wearing, Lesley? What did you say to provoke the man? That does not warrant an attack. That does not warrant rape. It does not warrant murder. But surely these are just some of the challenges that even come with trying to raise awareness around gender-based violence.
And it's quite concerning, really, when women do speak up and the backlash that is faced. And I'd like to take you back to all the way to RU reference at Rhodes University. We had students that were fed up, that stood up and named perpetrators and wanted them out of the university. And the activists that did stand up and speak out against this violence were ultimately excluded for life. How is that justice when women speak up and want to fight against gender-based violence? You exclude them for life, and rapists at the university are only excluded for 10 years. Is that really fair? And is that really consistent in the way in which we want to build and shape our society? We saw it again with Lerato Moloi, who spoke out against the violence that she experienced, and she ultimately was facing arrest. Is that really fair? We say women should speak up and report, but when we do that, we still face backlash. When we go to the police stations, we are treated, we are ridiculed, we are humiliated. And when we speak about issues of gender-based violence, we should never, ever forget queer bodies in this discussion, because it's very important to also highlight the issues that queer women are facing when they go and report issues to the police, and the treatment that they receive, So there needs to be more that needs to be done in society in terms of creating a safe space for women to report, because it seems like whether we talk or we're silent, we still die, we're still getting raped, we're still getting killed. And where do we draw the line? Yeah. As people in society.
I'm so glad you mentioned queer women and queer bodies, because just recently, even though it's in more of an international context in the US, I've seen this video where three, transgender women were ridiculed, beaten, for walking down the streets, minding their business. And it seems that even queer women are not acknowledged, they're not recognized, they're not respected. And it also brings me to the question, Elaine, about, the police, as well as their interaction with victims and survivors of gender-based violence. I mean, women have often come out saying that they don't receive the necessary support that they should be having from law enforcement authorities, especially those who are at the front lines, who have to ensure that they take those tests, and obviously take those statements down. That system there seems to also be rigged and very much compromised.
Yes, it definitely is. There's a reason why women do not go to police stations to report their gender-based violence incidents. That's because you don't feel welcomed, you don't feel safe to go and report your crime. I believe that in South Africa, things definitely need to change in that regard. Why is it so hard for us as South Africa to implement a gender-based unit in the police like Namibia has done? We've seen that people are coming forward in Namibia, that they're reporting their cases and that they feel safe and comfortable to go and report their cases. I definitely believe this needs to be implemented in South Africa for change to take effect.
Yeah. I want to bring in you there, Boitumelo, because as a gender-based violence activist, I'm sure you have seen numerous times women on social media saying, because I do not feel safe and supported by reporting a case to the police, let me out my perpetrator on social media. We've seen numerous names being outed on social media of alleged perpetrators of gender-based violence. With that been going on social media, how has been the response to women who've been, sort of sharing their stories, outing their alleged rapists or even assaulters on social media, according to your assessment?
I think the response has been both negative and positive. Most women who have come out on social media have received support from other women and have therefore been able to find, I don't want to say closure, because we still want the justice system to give them the justice that they deserve, but the support that they've received has been very positive. And obviously there have been men who would come out and ask questions like, what did you do to ask for this to happen to you, and such like that. But I think the social media has reduced the secondary victimization that they might have received from police officers if they had reported it there.
Yeah. And for you, Lesley, I mean, are you seeing the same there in terms of both support and, attacks coming into women who out on social media? Because that seems to be the safer route that women prefer to take, if we're being fair these days. Women now prefer to actually go to the public court, and the public court being social media, where even though I may not get justice, but I will say publicly, this is my story, and this is what a man has done, and perhaps even another woman who is in contact with this perpetrator can be aware that this is my story, so therefore they also need to be careful.
And it is an interesting observation to see that women have chosen to take this route of going onto Twitter or Facebook to share their stories, because then that's when we know that some sort of action is going to happen, because we know right now there's this culture, this cancel culture, where once you're outed as an abuser, no one wants to, well, we would like to believe that no one should be associating with you. Brands should not be working with you. And it's a great step. But however, there's still backlash that has been faced by women, that when women do out their abusers, they're not threatened with defamation lawsuits.
Right.
It's like the law is against us. The system is against us. Where do we turn to as women? We speak out, we out our abusers, we're threatened with lawsuits.
I'm going to go to an ad break, but before I do shortly, Elaine, I want to come in there with you just for a short comment on this. Also, besides, the outing of alleged perpetrators on social media, the trend that I've also been observing is even the friends or the associates around the perpetrator. It seems South Africa is so fed up that they're saying that if you know this alleged perpetrator, you equally need to be held accountable, because you need to hold your friends accountable. You need to tell them as well to stop. So it's almost as if it's saying that that long phase of good fences make for good neighbors is gone. When you see wrong, you call out wrong, and if it's your friend, you do the same.
I highly agree on this. I believe the only way that we can help aid and become responsible as women is to call out our perpetrators and to call out their friends as well, because I don't believe it's okay if I had to stay friends with my perpetrator or allow a friend of mine to be okay to be friends with them, because if you continue your friendship with my perpetrator, we're not friends, clearly. So we need to continue the conversation on calling out our perpetrators, because you can't sit in my circle while I know that you are actively a rapist or an abuser. It's not okay.
All right, that's where we'll leave our conversation for now. I have to take this break, but we'll continue with our gender-based violence discussion with our panelists when we return. And I want to place a special focus then on what government is doing, what the Justice Department is doing, what our police stations are doing for survivors and victims of GBV when we return.